Hey, what's up everybody? This is Norris once again, and today I have a special DIY for you. I'm gonna teach you how to copy your favorite t-shirt so you can make it over and over again. So all the tools that you're gonna need today is one tracing wheel, a pair of fabric scissors, a ruler, measuring tape. You're gonna need paper. I got kind of creative. I got some old Christmas paper, wrapping paper that I didn't use over the holidays, so I'm gonna use the inside of that. And your favorite t-shirt. For fabric choice, you can use any kind of t-shirt weight fabric knit, and you can get that at any one of your local Joann's. So first, what you're gonna do is fold your t-shirt in half with the front of the t-shirt on top. This is gonna be the pattern for the front half of the shirt. Make sure that your shirt is ironed with no wrinkles so that it'll lay flat and you get an accurate pattern cut out of it. Okay, now when your t-shirt is flat, take your ruler and get your pencil or a Sharpie, whatever you want to use, to trace it. So for the front, trace a straight line all the way up. Trace it all the way up to the top. We're going to do the bottom. Now we're going to do the side that goes all the way up to the armhole. The t-shirt is going to curve a little bit, so just do a little bit at a time so it'll follow all the way up to the armpit. Now the top of the shoulders, you want to be careful not to include the neckband. So the seam right there where the shoulder starts, that's where you want to start. And follow that line all the way down to the seam of the shoulder. So next you want to grab your tracing wheel and start right at the shoulder seam. Be sure to press hard, and we're going to follow the line within the seam of the neckband all the way around. So we're going to do the same thing with the shoulder seam. You want to start right here and press all the way down and follow that seam line all the way to the bottom of the armpit. Now when you remove it, you want to follow the dots that your tracing wheel made. So as you see at the top of my shoulder, I've added 1/2 inch for a seam allowance, and you're gonna do this all the way around except at the front because we're cutting on the fold, and at the bottom we're gonna do about 3/4 inch for the hem allowance. I'm gonna measure out 1/2 inch and follow the line all the way to the end. And we're going to do another 1/2 inch at the neckline. So now we're going to mark our patterns so we'll know what they are after we cut them out. So this one is going to be cut on the fold. This is to place the pattern on the edge of the folded fabric. And this is going to be the front piece, so we're going to write front. Now cut along the lines. Use different scissors for your fabric and different scissors for your paper. This Christmas wrapping paper was a bit difficult, but this is how your pattern is going to look once you cut it out. Now that we have our front piece, we're going to take the t-shirt and fold it so the back is showing, and lay it down and get ready to trace it. So you want to take your tracing wheel and go right on the back neckline in between the seams. And we're going to follow that all the way down the shoulder and get inside the seams of the arm. And just as you did with the front, you want to go down the side, the bottom, and also the front. So now all together we have our front and we have our back pieces. And next I'm going to teach you how to measure the length of the neckband so we can cut it out for that pattern. So we're going to measure from one shoulder seam to the other shoulder seam, and we're going to crawl the measuring all the way around. Be sure to keep it right there on the seam to get an accurate neckband. And once we get to the other shoulder seam, we're going to mark it. So right here we got about 11.5 inches. Jot that down, and we're going to measure that with the back. So turn it over, and we're going to begin at the shoulder seam and crawl the measuring tape all the way to the other end. And this is going to be 9.5 inches. Okay, now that we have the front and back, you want to combine those together to get your length. So for the width, we're going to measure out 2.5 inches, and for the length, however long your measurements were. And for my case, it was right at 20.5 inches. So it's best to do the length first and then connecting the width. So I'm gonna measure out my 20.5 inches first. Now we're gonna mark this neckband. So last, we're gonna trace the sleeves. Because the sleeves are gonna be cut on the fold, we can trace half of it. So now grab your tracing wheel, and we're gonna go right inside the seam. Be sure to put pressure on it and curve it all the way to the bottom of the armpit. And next, trace the top of the sleeve, the tip of the armhole, and right underneath the armpit. So once we remove it, you just want to connect that dot. So now we're going to add 1/2 inch of a seam allowance along the seam and also the bottom of the armpit, and then a 5/8 of an inch for the hem allowance. And then we're going to mark it as sleeve. And then cut it out. So now that we have everything cut out, we're going to review the pattern pieces. You should have a front. It should look like this. We should have a back. That should look exactly like this. You should have a sleeve. And you should also have a neckband. Now grab your fabric and let's get started to cut your fabric pieces out. So once you lay out your fabric, you want to take the end of the fabric and fold it and make sure it's wide enough to lay your pattern pieces on top of it. Get all the wrinkles out, make sure it's nice and neat. You don't want a goofy t-shirt. So the first piece we're gonna do is the front. So you want to make sure that it fits and bring it all the way to the end of the folded fabric. And that's why it says cut on the fold. So before cutting out the pattern, you're gonna need to hold your patterns down. So I'm gonna use washers, and you can also use pattern weights. Now grab your fabric scissors and let's neatly cut out this pattern. Now we have the front cut out, so take your back piece and cut it out the same exact way that we did the front piece. So now you're gonna fold over your fabric and place your pattern on top, and you're gonna put the cut on fold half close on the edge of the folded fabric, and then you place your weights on top. Then cut. Now as you can see, I completely cut out my first sleeve. Now you're gonna take that same pattern, lay it across the fabric, and cut your second sleeve the same exact way. So next we're gonna grab our neckband, place it onto the fabric and cut that out for our final piece. And as you can see, I didn't put any cut on the fold or anything, so we're just gonna lay it across the fabric, just one layer, and cut it out for the shirt. Now that we got all the pieces cut out, let's do a quick review just to make sure we have everything before heading to the sewing machine. So you should have one front piece, it should look something like this, one back piece, like this, 2 sleeves, one for each arm, and a neckband, like this. Now let's go sew. So before we start, you want to make sure that the fabric is right side facing, which means the part of the fabric that everyone is going to see should be facing each other, the front and the back. And you're gonna pin shoulder to shoulder to keep the fabric in place. And we're gonna stitch it down 1/2 inch for the seam allowance. So if you see that one of your pieces are uneven, you just wanna stretch the shorter one to evenly distribute the fabric. Also remember to back stitch to secure your stitching. And also back stitch at the end to secure the stitching at the end. Now that we have completed one shoulder, you want to sew the other shoulder the same exact way. Now that we have both shoulders sewn down, let's move to the side and sew these down 1/2 inch as well. And once again, if you find that pieces are a little uneven, stretch and sew at the same time to evenly distribute the fabric. Once you get done sewing down one side, you want to do the other side the same exact way, just like this. Now that we have both shoulders and both sides sewn, it's time to attach one of the sleeves. Now what we're going to do next is grab one of your sleeves, and with right sides facing, you want to sew down the underarm seam, 1/2 inch. So what you're going to do is sew the underarm seam on your other sleeve the same exact way as shown here. So to attach your first sleeve, you want to make sure that the front sides are facing by tucking the sleeve in side of the armhole. Then you want to align the underarm seam and the side seam together and evenly distribute the fabric around the armhole with pins. And now you can begin to sew the 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around the armhole. Once you completely sew in one sleeve, you want to do the other sleeve the same exact way. So now that we've attached both sleeves, as you see right here, so the next step is to add the neckband. So what we're going to do is place this aside and grab your neckband piece. So now what we're going to do is take your neckband and we're going to fold it with front side facing, and we're going to sew it down 5/8 of an inch. So once you sew down the ends, you're going to take the neckband and fold it in half. Then you want to grab the opening of your neck, attach it to the right side facing of your shirt. The best way to pin it is to put the seam right in the middle and then evenly distribute the neckband around the opening of the neck. So once you've pinned all around the neckband and attached it to the shirt, you're ready to sew it down. And we're going to sew this down with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So once you're all done attaching your neckband, it should look like this. And now we're going to do the hem of the sleeves. And you want to give yourself 5/8 of an inch hem allowance. So you're simply just going to fold the fabric down. So once you pin out the hem, be sure that you sew it down close to the edge. Once you finish up the hem on one sleeve, you want to do the other one the same exact way. So now the final step, we're going to do the bottom hem of the shirt. You want to give this 5/8 seam allowance as well. Then measure out 5/8 of an inch as you pin all the way around. So only thing left you have to do once you sew down your hem is to press it with the iron and you're good to go.